Today, let's take a look at multiplying and dividing decimals. So let's find each product or quotient. Example 1. If I had a negative 9 times 4/10, you're going to multiply just like you do your whole numbers. So I'm going to multiply 9 times 4, and I'm going to get 36. And when we multiply, we are going to point off decimal places. I have one digit to the right of the decimal here, so I'm going to point off one decimal place in this answer. Right now, this is a whole number. The decimal for 36 is here, so I'm going to take that decimal and shift it one place to my left. And a negative times a positive is a negative, so my answer is a negative 3 6/10. Example 2. If I had 1 7/10, and I want to multiply by 1 2/10, I'm going to come over here and do the multiplication for you. So we're going to multiply, just like we do our whole numbers. 2 times 7 gives you 14. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 gives you 3. 1 times 7 gives you 7. And 1 times 1 gives you 1. Now add. I get a 4. 7 plus 3 gives you 10. 1 plus 1 gives you 2. Now see how many decimal places you have to point off. I have one digit to the right of the decimal here, one digit to the right of the decimal, so that gives me 2 places. 204 is a whole number. The decimal for that whole number is here. I'll take the decimal, shift it 2 places to my left. 1, 2. So my answer is 2 4/100. Example 3. If I had 1.04 and I want to multiply it by a negative 8.9. I'll do the multiplication over here for you. So I'm going to take 1 4/100 and multiply it by 8 9/10. I am multiplying. 9 times 4 gives me 36. 9 times 0 is 0, plus 3 gives me 3. 9 times 1 gives me 9. 8 times 4 gives me 32. And I better put that 3 up there for you. 8 times 0 is 0, plus 3 gives me 3. And 8 times 1 gives me 8. Now add. I get a 6. 2 plus 3 is 5. 3 plus 9 gives me 12. And 8 plus 1 gives me 9. Check to see how many decimal places I need to point off. Here I have 2 digits to the right of the decimal. I have 1 digit here, so that gives me 3 places. Again, this is a whole number right now. The decimal is here. I'll take the decimal and shift it 3 places to my left. 1, 2, 3. A positive times a negative is a negative, so my answer is a negative 9.256. Example 4. For example 4, if I had a negative 9.6 and I want to multiply it by a negative 2.05. All right, let's multiply. So I'll take 2.05, multiply it by 9.6. As I multiply, 6 times 5 gives me 30. 6 times 0 is 0, plus 3 gives me 3. And 9 times 2 gives me 12. Now multiply by 9. 9 times 5 gives me 45. 9 times 0 is 0, plus 4 gives me 4. And 9 times 2 gives me 18. As I add, I get a 0, 5 plus 3 is 8. 4 plus 2 is 6. 8 plus 1 is 9. Bring that 1 down. Again, I've got 1, 2, 3 places to the right of the decimal. The decimal for this whole number is here. Shift 3 places to the left. 1, 2, 3. A negative times a negative is a positive, so my answer is 19.68. Example 5. If I had 1 and 3/10 times a negative 4 and 2/10, and I want to multiply that by a negative 3 and 94/100. So let's multiply these two numbers first. Let's multiply the 1 and 3/10 times the 4 and 2/10. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 1 gives you 2. 4 times 3 gives you 12. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. I get a 6, I get a 4, I get a 5. I have 2 places to the right of the decimal. The decimal for the whole number is here. Shift 2 places to the left. 1, 2. I get 5.46. Now I'll take the 5.46 and multiply it by the 3.94. As I multiply, and this is a positive times a negative, so that means that's going to be negative, okay? All right, so that's a negative 5.46, and we're going to multiply it by the negative 3.94. So I won't forget the sign. All right, 4 times 6 gives us 24. 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 plus 2 gives you 18. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 1 gives you 21. Now multiply by 9. 9 times 6 gives you 54. 9 times 4 is 36, and 36 plus 5 is 41. 9 times 5 is 45, and 45 plus 4 gives you 49. Now multiply by your 3. 3 times 6 gives you 18. 3 times 4 gives you 12, and 12 plus 1 gives you 13. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 gives you 16. It is very important that you put the digits in the correct place. Now we're ready to add. I get a 4. 8 plus 4 gives me 12. 8 plus 1 is 9, plus 1 is 10, plus 1 is 11. 3 plus 9 is 12. 12 plus 2 is 14, plus 1 gives you 15. 6 plus 4 is 10, plus 1 gives you 11. And 1 plus 1 gives you 2. Now we have a whole number, and we're going to see how many decimal places. We have 2 digits to the right here, 2 digits to the right. That gives us 4 places we need to point off. Again, this is a whole number. The decimal is here. We're going to shift that decimal 4 places to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. A negative times a negative is a positive, so our answer is 21.5124. If we were to read that correctly, that's 21 and 5,124 10,000ths. Example 6. If I had 3 and 78/100ths, and I want to divide it by 4 and 2/10. So we're going to set up our division. Now, when we're dividing decimals, we want our divisor to be a whole number. So in order for this divisor to become a whole number, I need to shift my decimal 1 place to the right. Whatever number of places I shift in my divisor, I must go in my dividend and shift the same number of places. So I shifted 1. So I'll go in my dividend, shift 1 place to the right, and remember to bring the decimal up in your quotient before you start doing your division, okay? So I'm ready to divide. Now, this is what I tell students to do. 4 times something is real close to that 37. So 4 times 9 is close to 37. So I'm going to try 9. So I'll put a 9 here. Now I'll multiply. 9 times 2 gives me 18. 9 times 4 is 36, and 36 plus 1 gives me 37. And any number minus itself gives me 0. So my quotient is 0.9. Example 7. If I had a negative 9.76 and I want to divide it by 3.05. Again, to show the division, 3 5/100 is my divisor. 9 76/100 is my dividend. Shift 2 places to the right so that my divisor becomes a whole number. And let's do the same thing here. Shift 2 places to the right so my new decimal is right there at the end of that number is where my decimal is, okay? So let's divide. Let's see how many times 305 will go into 976, and we don't want to go over that. So we're going to try 3. 3 times 5 gives us 15. 3 times 0 gives us 0 plus 1 gives us 1. 3 times 3 gives us 9. Now let's subtract. When I subtract, 6 minus 5 gives me 1. 7 minus 1 gives me 6. And I am safe because that remainder is smaller than that divisor. Now I'm going to add a 0. Bring the 0 down. Now let's see how many times will 305 go into 310. That would be a 2. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. 2 times 3 gives us 6. Subtract, I get a 0. I had a negative divided by a positive, so the quotient is a negative 3 2/10. Example 8. If I had a negative 18 and I need to divide it by 3, a negative 3 75/100. Again, this is my divisor. 18 is my dividend. I need to make my divisor a whole number. First of all, the decimal for 18 is here because that's a whole number. I'm going to shift this decimal 2 places to the right. I need to go in my dividend, shift 2 places to the right, so I need to add 2 zeros. So the new decimal here, bring it up in my quotient, and now we're ready to divide. So when I take 3 and divide 375 and divide it into, I can't divide it into 180, but I'll divide it into 1,800, and that will go about 4 times. 4 times 5 gives me 20. 4 times 7 gives me 28, and 28 plus 2 gives me 30. 4 times 3 gives me 12, and 12 plus 3 gives me 15. Now I'm ready to subtract. I get a 0, I get a 0, I get a 3. I'm safe because this remainder is smaller than that divisor. So now I'll add a 0. And as I add my 0, I'm going to get 8. 8 times 5 gives you 40. 8 times 7 gives you 56, and 56 plus 4 gives you 60. And 8 times 3 is 24, and 24 plus 6 gives you 30. The remainder is 0. So a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so my quotient is 4 8/10. Example 9. If we take 27 82/100 and let's divide it by 2 6/10. Again, my divisor is 2 6/10. My dividend is 27.82. Let's make our divisor a whole number, so I need to shift 1 place to the right. The number of places I shift in my divisor, I go to my dividend, shift one place to the right. My new decimal is here. Make sure you bring the decimal up in your quotient. I can divide 26 into 27. It goes 1 times. 1 times 26 gives me 26. I'm about to subtract. 7 minus 6 gives me 1. Bring down my next digit. I'm ready to divide again. 18 divided by 26 is 0. 0 times 26 gives you 0. Subtract. Bring down your next digit. Okay? And now we're ready to continue this multiplication. Okay? So here I'll get a 7. 7 times 2 times 7 times 6 gives me 42. 7 times 2 is 14, and 14 plus 4 gives me 18. A positive divided by a positive is a positive. So my answer is 10 and 7/10. One more example. Example number 10. If I had a -2 and 58 hundredths, and I want to divide it by a -4 3/10. So the 4 3/10 is my divisor. The 2.58 is my dividend. I'm going to shift one place to the right, shift one place to the right, bring the decimal up. This is going to go 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25. Subtract, I get a 0. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, so my quotient is 0.6.